Yesterday, Donald Trump finally revealed what the end game is, what the viable thought-through plan looks like, and how this ends.
I guess the worst case would be we do this and then somebody takes over who's as bad as the previous person, right? That could happen. We don't want that to happen. It would probably be the worst. You go through this and then in 5 years you realize you put somebody in who was no better. So we'd like to see somebody in there that's going to bring it back for the people.
What? Sorry, pardon?
Yesterday, Trump rambled about a stupid island called Britain uncooperative, then dropped the line British tabloids couldn't wait to print. Keir Starmer is no Winston Churchill. Cue the outraged front pages. Cue the newspapers that have spent years calling Starmer Trump's poodle, suddenly cheering the man insulting him. But almost nobody in the British press wants to say this out loud. Getting mocked by Donald Trump right now might be the best thing that could happen to a British Prime Minister. Stick around, because by the end you'll see exactly why James O'Brien thinks that, and why the people celebrating this insult should be the most embarrassed by it. If you want more commentary like this, hit subscribe and drop a comment with where you land. Let's get into it.
By the way, I'm not happy with the UK either. That island that you read about, the lease, okay, he made it for whatever reason, he made a lease of the island. Somebody came and took it away from him. And it's taken 3-4 days for us to work out where we can land there. It would have been much more convenient landing there as opposed to flying many extra hours. So we are very surprised. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
And on it goes.
This is not the age of Churchill. I will say has been very, very uncooperative with that stupid island that they have, that they gave away and took a 100-year lease, having to do with perhaps indigenous people claiming the island that never even saw the island before. What's that all about? And they ruin relationships.
I mean, that doesn't actually make literal sense. They never saw that island before. What's that all about? I mean, you'll remember it was a good deal, then it was a bad deal. Now it's caused some minor inconvenience to his plans for attacking Iran, so he's lashing out again. This time next week it'll probably be a good deal again. The job of a journalist, of course, is to, if someone says it's raining, is to stick your head outside and find out whether or not it gets wet. Unless you're working in most of the British media at the moment, in which case it is to trumpet Donald Trump's nonsense and pretend that it both makes sense and causes proper problems for Keir Starmer. I mean, that was absolute gibberish, but he did do one thing. Those two lines that I've been hitting you over the head with now for 2 days, one from David Petraeus, tell me how this ends, and the other from Colin Powell, make sure you have a specific political objective when you undertake military action. So tell me how this ends, and or make sure you have a specific political objective. David Petraeus, Colin Powell. Latterly, Keir Starmer, you need a viable, thought-through plan. Yesterday, Donald Trump finally revealed what the end game is, what the viable, thought-through plan looks like, and how this ends.
I guess the worst case would be we do this and then somebody takes over who's as bad as the previous person, right? That could happen. We don't want that to happen. It would probably be the worst. You go through this and then in 5 years you realize you put somebody in who was no better. So we'd like to see somebody in there that's going to bring it back for the people.
What? Sorry, pardon? So there you have it. You are either with that unhinged gibberish or you are against it. And Donald Trump has confirmed, if there were any doubt at all, that Keir Starmer has established himself as being against it. And it's the proudest I've been of our Prime Minister in a very long time. How much shock would you feel if Donald Trump appeared on your television screen, maybe not tomorrow, but possibly tomorrow, let's say a week on Friday, and announced that Keir Starmer is the natural heir to Winston Churchill? How shocked would you be? You wouldn't be shocked at all. You wouldn't be shocked at all, because he is incapable of shocking you now. Might still surprise you occasionally, but he will never shock you, because you have become unshockable. Because the truth has become entirely negotiable, broken. Subjective, not objective. Is he in favour or against the Chagos deal? Depends when you ask him. Is he a fan or an enemy of Keir Starmer? Depends when you ask him. How does the British media respond or report all of these sea changes, these U-turns, these polar opposite positions? It reports them as if the latest thing he said is the most important, unless they don't like it, in which they'll still report it, but nowhere near as prominently as when he says things that they actually like. Which leads us to the front page of the ugly sisters of British print journalism, the front page of the Daily Telegraph, enormous letters. Starmer is no Churchill. Next time Donald Trump says nice things about Starmer, how prominent do you think their coverage will be? And then, of course, the Daily Mail, which I kind of wrote the book of right-wing madness that is increasingly unpatriotic and reminds us that newspapers like this were supporting Adolf Hitler right up to the moment that he invaded Poland. A Prime Minister who Trump mocks as no Churchill and a Navy fleet stranded in port. Whose side do you think they're on? The British side or the foreign side? Where's our sovereignty? Why aren't they cheering a Prime Minister for standing up for British interests and the rule of law and viable thought-through plans before you go to war? It's incredible, right? We don't know how to do it. These are, once respectable newspapers. Even the Times that goes with PM is no Churchill, says Trump, as tensions rise. So that is not celebratory in the way that the Telegraph front page is. They are not cheering on a foreign leader who wishes us harm. But the Mail and the Telegraph are. They are cheering on a foreign leader who wishes our system of democracy harm, who rides roughshod over the rule of law, who rides roughshod over international and domestic law, remember. He's a multiple felon, a multiple bankrupt, a self-confessed sex offender. And yet these newspapers that would once have seen themselves as bastions of law and order and family values and respectability are falling over themselves to disappear up his fundament in a sort of sycophantic display. And it leaves Keir Starmer today in a most extraordinary position, because I truly believe that this is the best thing that could have happened to Keir Starmer this week. With the caveat, because now, in case you haven't noticed, and you probably have, I am now falling in headlong into the trap that I've just described. Do you see? I'm falling headlong into the trap of treating Trump's latest announcement with respect and gravity. Donald Trump has announced, during a succession of half-truths and blatant lies regarding everything from the Chagos Islands to windmills and Sharia law, I think he got it right, but the well from which he's been drinking his understanding of Sharia law in this country is the same well from which your friendly neighbourhood racist writing about Shakira law on Twitter has been drinking. He, in this conference, in this moment, slagged off Keir Starmer by saying that he was no Winston Churchill. I mean, if I were Will Smith, I would suggest that Donald Trump should get the name of our wartime leader out of his mouth. But I'm not, so I won't. I will, however, point out that this is the sound of me falling in some ways into exactly the same trap that I've just been describing to you, while acknowledging throughout that I'm part of the problem, because how else do you do it? That's not the phoning. How else do you do it? He's the President of the United States of America. He's not Judge Dredd, but it's similar. Judge Dredd's word was law. Donald Trump's words are news, and they are big news. And it has not yet mattered that the very next day, the next hour, the next moment, he could quite comfortably say the polar opposite of what everybody is having kittens about today. Whether they're fluffy, pretty kittens or whether they're negative kittens, whether your kittens are kittens of disgust and fear or kittens of enthusiasm and celebration. He could say the polar opposite tomorrow. I hope it doesn't sound conceited to you, but I find it extraordinary how completely so many members of this profession have failed still to recognise that. I haven't got a solution to it, but I have to recognise it. You have to point out that if you're going to report this so big, then you have to report the U-turn when he describes Keir Starmer as his best friend, at least as big as well. And of course you don't, because you're a right-wing outlet or a right-wing mouthpiece or a right-wing politician, and you are still so seduced by either the racism or the misogyny or the climate change denial, that you will forgive him absolutely everything he does, despite being the most obviously depraved and disgusting politician that the West has created in living memory. And now he has slagged off Prime Minister Starmer. Now he has accused Prime Minister Starmer of being no Winston Churchill. And before you remind me of the many, many deeply black marks on Winston Churchill's record, it is meant as an insult. It is buying into the very rose-tinted and often evidence-ignoring perception of Winston Churchill as a hero of absolutely unimpeachable magnificence. A great wartime leader. Make no bones about it, but he was also a massive imperialist and I mean, almost certainly a white supremacist. So that's not what Trump is referring to, although, of course, he would personally admire the white supremacism just as Elon Musk would. But when he slags off Keir Starmer, I feel proud that the Prime Minister has got this so right. I haven't felt very proud of our Prime Minister lately, or indeed of our country's performance on many, many stages, domestically. Internationally, less so. He is a much better Prime Minister internationally than he is domestically. The other bit that didn't get picked up by much Western media yesterday was Trump describing Zelensky as P.T. Barnum, the famous circus impresario. So, you know, a genuine hero, a man truly resisting hideous autocracy and illegal wars, resisting them, not starting them, that Donald Trump has joined Vladimir Putin in doing. Trump was insulting 2 days ago, describing Zelensky as P.T. Barnum and describing Starmer as being no Churchill. What side would you want to be on if you were even vaguely honest? Vaguely committed to, you know, little things like decency, democracy, transparency and the rule of law. What side would you want to be on? The self-confessed sex offender, multiple felon, bankrupt, who's trousering money like it's going out of fashion, while his press secretary says it can't possibly be corruption because we're doing it all out in the open. She says that out loud. And then you've got your Badenochs and your Farages and your Daily Mails and your Daily Telegraphs queuing up to pretend they're patriotic while actually blowing smoke up the backside of a man who would not even pour water on us if we were on fire. How do you know that? Because you've watched him. You know what he is. You know who he is. So, point number one, this is good for Keir Starmer. Point number two, do you think all of the people calling for us to be getting more heavily involved in this scenario are going to be the ones that are throwing open their doors to welcome the refugees who will be rendered dispossessed and homeless by the attacks upon Iran? The tidal wave of humanity that many experts are warning is set to emanate from Iran. Do you think they're the same people? Do you think Farage is looking forward to that? Well, he probably is, actually, because he can make disgusting racist Nazi-themed posters about it and use it to shore up his support among his own voters, who we discovered yesterday want to deport people who are British but brown, including some of his most recent recruits to his own party. About 20% of Reform voters, as we'll discover later in the programme, think that people like Nadeem Zahawi should be deported. So he might well welcome another refugee crisis, because immigration is about to hit pretty close to zero. And how is he going to frighten your Auntie Doris if there aren't actually any foreigners arriving here in droves? Answer, well, here come the Iranians, the casualties of the war that I called for and supported. Let's call for them to be sunk in their dinghies in the middle of the English Channel, because it's all I've got, it's all I am, it's what I do. I'm Nigel Farage, I stoke up racism. So, spoiler alert, all of the people, whether they're in politics or the media, currently pretending that they can't remember what happened in Iraq or they have no idea who or what Donald Trump is, will not be welcoming the wave of refugees likely now to be launched from the carnage in Iran. They will not be. They will be at the very back of it. They won't even be in the queue. They will be attacking them. They will be calling them fighting-age men. They will be claiming that they are all sex offenders. And they will be completely ignoring the fact that they were full-throated cheerleaders for the military action that has rendered these people refugees. If, not when, it happens. So, strange question. I haven't played you the clip yet. I'll play it to you after this, but this is really good for Keir Starmer, albeit that it could be reversed again tomorrow. And the reason it's good for Keir Starmer is that it completely shuts down one wing of criticism. A well-meaning but largely misunderstanding section of our society that thinks Keir Starmer has moved too close to Donald Trump. If Donald Trump is publicly slagging him off in public, it's going to be very hard to sustain the argument that Keir Starmer has become some sort of poodle So he's shut down the people who think that the UK shouldn't be defending its own interests or its allies. Trump has, by reminding us what a warmongering fraud looks like in these kind of moments, and what they have to say about the men and the women who believe in a lawful basis and who believe in viable, thought-through plans. Trump has handed him a gold star for getting things right. And, of course, it leaves all the people on the right forced to pretend that they can't remember Iraq. They have to close their eyes to the fact that Trump is the most unreliable player on the world stage. And they have to, of course, hope that you won't notice that they're about to cause another refugee crisis, which much of their political status depends upon attacking. And that's the end of my TED Talk, I think.
So sit with that for a second. The same newspapers that once postured as guardians of British sovereignty and the rule of law are now furious their Prime Minister refused to bow to a man who doesn't even have a plan for the war he's pushing. That's the trap O'Brien lays bare. Trump's approval one day, his outrage the next, none of it is principle. It's mood, and the British right-wing press keeps chasing it like gospel. Here's the part that should sting most. The same voices praising Trump for slapping down Starmer will be nowhere to be found when the human cost of his recklessness actually arrives. No cameras. No front pages. No sudden concern for the people left behind. So when the headlines scream that Starmer isn't Churchill, ask yourself what he'd have to do to earn that comparison from a man like this. Being on Trump's bad side might be the clearest sign yet that someone's doing something right. That's it for this one. If this broke something down for you, you know what to do.